my wife giving birth to our children was nothing but tragedy to me. And so Lily comes out, and there's no sounds. There's nothing.
She was born with trisomy.
Trisomy 18. So there's 3 trisomies that a human being can be born with. Trisomy 21, trisomy 18, and trisomy 13. And so she was born with trisomy 18.
And what does that mean?
Just like 21 is Downs.
Okay.
It's the only trisomy that you can live with. She had a 99% chance of dying day 1, dying day 2. So the longest living, I think there is a 20-year-old out there with trisomy 18, but most die within hours. Hours. Mm-hmm. And she lived 17 days, the longest 17 days of my life. It changed everything. It changed the entire perspective of everything and who I was. The God I believed in that I no longer believed in. She was born, and I'll never forget, they took her away. And me and my wife, she just got done with a C-section, and we're sitting there, and the geneticist walked in. And the geneticist sits down on the end of the bed, and he looks at Season and I, and a tear rolls down his cheek. And I just remember thinking, if a doctor's crying, this can't be good news. And he looked at us and he goes, here's the key. He looked at us and he goes, the human being, there's no explanation for a human being to be born. There's no explanation that how a human can be formed inside of another human except God. That's what a geneticist that has studied science his entire life said. He goes, it must be God. Mm-hmm. And that struck me, but it didn't strike me till 20 years later.
Yeah, it didn't win you over in the moment.
Did not win me over in the moment. And he then went on to say that she had this horrific chromosome disorder. She had a hole in her heart. She would probably die in the hospital. She would not make it past a couple days. We had some choices to make. We could put her on a feeding tube and get a couple weeks out of her. We could just let it just kind of happen by fruition.
What choice did you make?
We did not put her on a feeding tube. She did actually feed. They told her that she wouldn't be able to, and she did feed some. Mm-hmm. She was tiny, 4 pounds.
Yeah.
When you look down at your daughter, and you can't save her, I hated God. I mean, I hated him. I hated him so bad. There's no way that's real. There's no way that God's real. There's no way, is what I thought. There's no way that you can look down at her and think that God's real. There's no way. I hated him. I remember sitting in a parking lot 3 days after her birth. And I'm having a conversation I'm talking to God, not knowing if I'm believing in him or not. And I'm telling him how much I hate him. Over and over and over. I just keep saying it. I effing hate you. I effing hate you. I hate you. Don't ever, ever come knocking at my door. Over. I bent my steering wheel down. I started punching my dash through the plastic, sticking out of my hands. Pain. Over and over. And I'll never forget this. I felt a calming touch on my shoulder. And I heard an audible voice that said, I know that you hate me, but I'm waiting when you're ready to talk. And I'll never forget that. And so, I moved on through life. Lily died at 17 days old. It was the hardest thing we've ever done. Ever. There's nothing harder, nothing, than burying your child.
How did that impact you in that moment? What did that mean to you?
I just started weeping. Just uncontrollable weeping. I knew that it wasn't a made-up voice. I knew that it wasn't a hallucinogenic or a drug. It was something beyond that. It was a touch and a voice that I couldn't describe. It was a touch, and looking back, it was a touch and a voice that I knew was real. But I didn't want to admit that it was real. It was a moment where he broke heaven and earth and put them together. Some people call that a thin place. The Icelandic people call that a thin place, is when you really experience God. And it was a thin place where I felt the presence of God. I heard his voice. I heard an audible voice that I believe was my father. And I remember just thinking, like, he's real. And I know that he's real. The geneticist told me that he's real. I heard his voice. I felt his touch. But then I would just look at the pictures of Lily and be like, how can you take that away? How can you kill that?
For people that are listening right now that maybe have the same question, you know, we have this all-knowing, all-loving, all-powerful God. They ask the question, how could God do that? What would your response be to them today?
Oh. Man.
I know back then what it would have been, but I know God's worked in your life. And I don't want to jump ahead in the story, but I think this is an important question to answer for people, because there's a lot of people out there that have gone through experiences of loss of kids like you've gone through that are wrestling with this question right now. How can an all-good, all-knowing, all-loving God allow such darkness to happen in this world? So how would you answer that?
I look at it now as this long ribbon timeline, this big long ribbon, and we're a razor blade slit in that ribbon. So to God, 17 days of Lily, it might be 1,000 years. And so that's the way I look at it now, is like God used Lily in that moment to minister to nurses, to doctors, to me, to her brothers and sisters. He used her as his daughter to be a light in the world. Today, she'd be 18 years old, graduated high school this year, and we're talking about her.
Mm-hmm.
We're still talking about her. So the hope then, the hope to people now that are living it, is there's a story there that God will use. Her life wasn't meaningless. It wasn't any more meaningless or meaningful than mine. And I'm 47. It's the same. He uses his children. And it's not about him being mean and killing her like I thought. That's what I thought. He killed her.
Sure.
It was about, good job, faithful servant. It's time to come home.
Mm-hmm.
So her journey was shorter. Good job, faithful servant. So, whether that's someone like, why did I get cancer? To tell your story. Why did my daughter die? So she could tell a story. Why did Tyler die? I don't, there's a lot of impact. People still talk about him today, right? So that's how I have to live, is like, she lived and did what the daughter of Christ was meant to do in her time. And who am I to say that her time wasn't long enough?
Mm-hmm.
That's a great answer.
I always feel like God working his redemptive power through history. Like God is always redeeming.
Yeah.
So taking something broken in a broken world that we live in and redeeming it, making it good. Right. And so we could look at that, and you have an option, and the way you look at it now is beautiful. One option way people is that God did this, but doesn't line up with the character nature of who God is, that God is killing people.
Right.
The truth is that we do live in an ugly world that's broken by sin nature. And so this is the reality of living in a sinful world. But as God is taking something so awful, so terrible, the worst thing I think that a parent could go through, I think the worst thing a human being could go through this side of heaven is losing a child. I think that'd be the hardest thing for anybody to go through, and whether and how do you get through that. And so, but then your perspective on it now that God's taking 17 days of this beautiful person, and we're looking going, that's terrible, but she only had to endure 17 days on this earth.
Right.
She's been walking with Jesus for 18 years and just joyful happiness that you get to one day go be connected with her again.
Yeah.
And I think that's the more beautiful story that we get to hear now, is God's redeeming power through that. It doesn't feel better here on this side of earth, but when you have an eternal perspective like you have, that's the way you view it. And now it brings joy and peace, and you're able to see it with clear vision now,
right,
as compared to what you did 18 years ago.
She won. She gets to walk with Jesus.
Yeah.
She got the winning gold ticket.
Yeah.
We live in such a broken world that when we're in the world, we don't see that. And so it just looks like death, destruction. Why did I get cancer? Why did my mom die? Why did my daughter die? Why did Jonny get in a motorcycle accident and lose his life? Like, it just doesn't. We can't make sense of it, also because we're not God. And I think sometimes we try to make sense of it. That was the hardest thing for me, is trying to make sense of why would you kill Lily? He didn't kill Lily. Her job was done. She did what she needed to do, and he wanted to bring her home.